Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Dr. Peter Doyle. I'm a research officer here in Teagasc Grange, and tonight we're here for the Future Beef webinar of night two to discuss the breeding the ideal suckler cow. So before we start, I'd like to thank all the main sponsors of the Future Beef program, which are outlined at the bottom of the screen. So their support is greatly appreciated. So tonight, look, we have a great selection of topics to discuss, and we have a great panelist with us. We have McSweeney, who is a suckler farmer from County Cork, who's running a suckler captive beef system with his family. We have Rose Goulding from NCBC. We also have Chris Daly from ICBF and Cliona Ryan from Teagasc. So I suppose the main topics that we're going to discuss here tonight in, I suppose, there's four main areas. First of all, we're talking about selecting the correct cows for replacement, and then how do we match the correct replacement sire to those replacement cows. And thirdly, we'll be talking about why determinant traits to select for when finishing progeny. And we will finalize our talk talking about myostatin, the double muscle genes, as well as Pole's genetics. So before we get into meeting our panelists, we might just have a video on McSweeney's farm down in County Cork.
Hi, my name is McSweeney. I'm farming here in Mill Street in County Cork. I have a spring calving suckler to beef system here on the farm. I use 100% AI, and I finish bulls under 16 months and heifers around 21 months.
So, Jar, thanks for coming on this evening. You have some great cows there. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about the cows that you're using on your farm?
Yeah, Peter. I suppose here on the farm, I do a cross between Limousin, Simmental, Angus, and as predominantly my cow traits, they need to be very functional cows here. They need to do, if here for a job, a good job. They need to rear a calf and rear a good calf every year, and they need to go back in calf. They need to have plenty of milk, good conformation. They need to be fertile, um, which is very important for going back in calf. They need to have good calving ability, calve without any problems as per se. They need to be docile, which is a very important trait here on the farm, and trying to breed docile cows, docile animals, a lot easier to handle. And I don't want big massive cows, and I don't want small cows. I want somewhere in between.
Yes, no, very good. And I suppose what type of weight gains are you getting with your calves off those cows at weaning?
Yeah, the bulls will be averaging around 1.4 kilos, and the heifers approximately 1.2,
Very good.
which I'd
Yeah,
be very happy with that.
yeah. And calving season is coming close to an end, is it? Or
I'm finished calving. I start in first week in January, and I'm just after starting breeding now for the coming year. So yeah, I'd like to finish one before I start the other. Yeah, breeding's just gone on the way there now.
perfect. I suppose, look, I suppose we'll get into it. I suppose, like, what type of cows are you looking at, when you're selecting a cow that you want to select replacements of for your breeding season?
Yeah, I suppose the like I'm not I don't really mind what type of cow. What I want is a cow. The color doesn't really make a difference to me as long as she is has good milk, not too much milk. Um, but she has good milk that will rear a good calf. That I can put a bull on her that she'll calve that bull calf easy, and calf is up and sucking within a short space of time. I don't need hard calvings. I don't like hard calvings. That's when the work really starts. And basically, I need that cow to come back and produce a calf every year, which is one of my KPIs. And she needs to be docile. All them traits kind of are important to me, and I suppose they're on ICBF. There's a suckler cow report on each cow and brings it up, and I can actually look down at progeny that that cow has reared over the years, and I can see what great animals she's coming in, because I finish all my animals here, either bulls around 16 months or heifers 20 to 22 months, and I need to be up a good carcass conformation up on the U grades, and I need carcass weights of approximately 400 for the bulls and
Yeah,
around.
I see there just on the Suckler cow report we have on the screen. We can see that cow 1195 that she's produced. The last two bulls she produced are 440 kilo carcass weight at 15 months of age, U grades, which is very good going. Actually, I might bring you in here, Chris. I suppose, look, you're with ICBF. There's a range of tools out there in terms of reports that farmers can use. Can you tell us about the reports the farmers can use from ICBF to different reports?
Yeah, Peter. So you've just gone through, or you have an example there of the Suckler Co report. It's probably one of the most informative ones because you kind of have everything there. So you've the animal's basic details, breed, makeup, date of birth. You have the replacement index, and I suppose probably what are the three most important traits. The carcass weight, which gives you an idea of the cow's growth merit. Your milk and your calving interval, which is essentially your fertility. You have some of our fertility data, you have our ancestry, and as Joe mentioned, then he can look down through the progeny performance. So it gives you a good overview of what a cow has done. I suppose what this is useful for. So Joe was coming up to his breeding season, and maybe when he's selecting bulls to use in cows, he can have a look through this, and that'll give him an idea of what cows have done in the past. And it might give him a bit of a steer on what to use on a cow going forward. Look, other reports, if you want more information on the indexes and go to more in depth, you have the Eurostar report, and that'll give you a bit more information on the other traits. A lot of farmers now on skep are weighing both the cow and the calf, so the weaning performance report is a very interesting one because that gives you the weaning efficiency then. So it gives you the calf's weight as a percentage of the cow weight. So it's a very interesting metric. You want that figure to be as high as possible. I suppose not that we want extremely light cows, but if you can have a moderate sized cow giving you, and you're really maximizing that weaning weight, then that's a very efficient cow because she's really justifying her own costs, then I suppose.
Yeah,
What we don't want are extremely large cows giving light calves because that's really inefficient and they're costing a lot to keep because they're eating quite a lot, but they're not giving it back. Um, yeah, look, I mean, there's other stuff then. I'm just trying to think. For farmers that are slaughtering animals, then there was a slaughter report before, but now there's a live profile, which is quite useful for farmers. So when you go in, it'll give you all the animals slaughtered in the last 12 months, but you can sort and filter animals, and there's different graphics and pie charts and stuff at the top. And as you change your selection of animals, those graphics will change as well. So Joe could go in and he could say, I want to analyze the average performance of my young bulls from last year. So he can set the date range, he can set it to young bulls, and it'll give him the average age, the average carcass weight, the average conformation, fat score, and price, etc. So that's a very useful tool as well.
yes, yeah. And say, look, on the likes of this Suckler cow report, that's not posted out to farmers, am I correct in saying that you have to log on to your ICBF page, do you, in
Yeah,
order to
so
get this?
so the Suckler cohort, no, it isn't posted. I suppose look, we got some feedback from farmers a number of years ago when we were kind of looking at what reports to post and not, and I suppose the ones that they felt were most useful were actually the calving report. So that's still posted every September. And the
Yeah.
5-year trend report, which actually went out there to farmers last week. The rest of the reports are available online. Look, I suppose one thing about a report is that if you post a report to a farmer, like it could be out of date the next day if something changes. But that
Yeah.
farmer could be depending on that information for the next 12 months, which might be a little bit misleading, if you understand what I'm saying. So by having to go in online every time you go in, you're generating a brand new fresh report. So it's bang up to date when you go in and generate
Yeah.
it. So it's better because look, we have had issues in the past where a farmer said, you sent me a report there and it says X, Y, or Z. And when you ask them when they got it, it could be 12 months before, and a lot of things have changed since then, so
Yeah. Yeah. And
um
at
it,
least with that live report, you say you can download it. It's a live report, and the steps to download it are there on the bottom left-hand side
yeah,
of the screen. And
it's very
just for
straightforward, and
the, sorry, just
it's very straightforward, and like once you click generate report, it's generated in 5 to 10 seconds,
perfect.
and it
Yeah.
opens the PDF.
And for suckler farmers that aren't finishing cattle, they still get the market price data, don't they, of their progeny? There's
Yeah,
a
so we're getting
question
the
on
data
that.
from probably 90 to 95% of the marts. There are a small handful of marts where we're not getting the data. So you'll have the ADG and the mark price. Now, look, a lot of calves are weighed on farm now, whereas they wouldn't have been in the past. So even where they don't go through the mark, you have the ADG, but where they do go through the mark price per kilo will be there. And if they go on and are slaughtered in a plant in the Republic of Ireland, you will have the carcass data there as well, because
Yeah.
we get the factory data from probably 95% of the factories as well.
Perfect. That's grand. Perfect. Thanks for all of that information there, Chris. That's great. So we might come back to yourself, Cher, just on, I suppose, certain cows that you've picked out for replacement based on how they look and using your reports and your genetic evaluations. So you have one cow here, the top cow, she's a fisting cow. You have a second cow there, number 2. She's a cemental cow out of 50 cent. Can you tell us about these cows and why you picked them?
Okay, I suppose the first one there is a very I call her a beefy cow. She's plenty carcass, she's wide, and she's my one of my most fertile cows. She calves every calf every year, and she's the first to come back in bulling every year. She's great calving ability. She literally spits out what I throw into her, touch wood. But her only issue is she's average on milk, and where she could, if I'm breeding off of this cow, I need to put in a bull which is a high milk value. On that bull, to bring up this to make it one of my ideal cows, we'll call her.
Yes, yeah. Very good. And then say for the likes of the second cow there, 593.
Yeah, she's a cemental, a very milky cow, a great cow again. She's look, the daughter calving into there is a minus value, which is great. Like, comes back in calf, one of the first ones to come back in calf every year, whereas a good calf every year, a little bit light on carcass, as we can see from the picture here. Compare her to the first cow, a
Yeah,
little bit light, but not that bad either. But a little bit more carcass on a replacement off of her would be absolutely ideal for me on the farm here.
what type of a bull would you be thinking in
I
terms of
would, I
breeds?
would, yeah, I'd be thinking of a limousine put back on her. I
Yeah,
like crossing
bring that
limousines back on
carcass
cemental
power.
cows. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And say,
that's it.
look, there's a cow there at the bottom of the screen, 605. She's a limousine cemental cow. Look, her figures look good on paper, but you're saying to me earlier that you didn't want to choose her for a replacement because of your experience with her.
Yeah, and I suppose that's something to watch out for. Sometimes looking at paper, you might think this is an ideal cow. She is everything. She has milk, she is carcass, and she's fertile, but her calving ability is poor. If most years the jack is out onto her calving, difficult calving. I had a bull of 4% calving on her this year, and I still had to pull the jack on her. So she's not for replacement.
Yes. Yeah.
No, definitely. And sometimes you have to know your herd, you have to know your cows, you have to know their calving ability, and you have to know you know best on your herd what's where a cow is in relation to where you want her to be. And this particular cow looks great in paper, but no, she's not for breeding for me.
Perfect. Well, in that case, we might just go through, I suppose, Next, we bring in Rose Goulding and we talk about what steps in terms of what bulls to choose for these cows. So for that first Fiston cow, 621, look, you said you need to improve her daughter milk. So Rose, I'll get you to come in here. You've arranged Jersey to put a cemental bull onto this cow to improve the milk. What have you got on offer here for us?
Yes, Peter. So, look, we've a whole range of cementals available, but we just pulled out 5 bulls here. All of them are very, very high in milk. That's the column that's highlighted in orange. The cow here she's just a slight plus, so she has some milk. She's not a minus milk cow. And if I had a cow that was really poor on milk, and you know, chatting with Jar, he would be of the same view. I wouldn't select her at all, because if the milk is too low, you won't get a daughter from them that will have enough milk to go through to give you performance. So I suppose that's the first thing to say. Now, all the Simmental bulls here are high in milk, but they're different reliabilities. So the first bull is an exceptional young bull. He's the #1 replacement bull available at the moment on the list. He's very high in milk at nearly plus 20 kilos. But the reliability is 39%. So basically that's a genomic figure. Having said that, he has an awful long way to drop. So I would still, you know what I mean, use him as a high milk bull, even though he's not proven. Currahee Narp is a fully proven bull, 98% reliable there, plus 5.7 kilos on milk, which is plenty of milk for a suckler cow. And as George said there, optimum milk is important. We don't want dairy cows, because cows with too much milk are nearly more of a hassle, because the calves can't cope with it early on, because they just literally can't take in all the milk that was there. And a lot of cows that are extremely high in milk, suckler cows, they end up losing quarters. So you know what I mean. You end up losing ground where you think you're gaining ground. And Currahee Narp to me is just the perfect amount of milk. Really, really good quality bull. Good on calving as well. Good on carcass, because remember, Jora's finishing cattle here, so he needs carcass as well.
There's I suppose, Jerry, you're not using sex semen, you're only using conventional semen, isn't it? So you're looking to still, there's that 50% chance that you could still end up with a bull.
That's very important for me when I'm selecting for replacement. The bull needs to be very good on replacement, but he also needs to be good for finishing as well, because sometimes you might get a heifer and it doesn't work out, that she doesn't go on calf, and you have to finish her, like, or else you get a bull and you have to be able to get a good carcass off of that bull as well. So you know, I look at both replacement and terminal for replacement bulls. I love ARP. I have him, I use him on the farm here. He's high reliability. He does what he says on the tin. So I'm happy with him.
Yes, yeah. There's actually just 1 or 2 questions coming in here. How do you find finishing the cementals in the under 16-month bull system if you do get a male?
Yeah, I can finish them. I have finished them before. Once they're are a good weaning weight, once the mother does a good job on him and he's a good weaning weight, I can take him on to finish on the 16 months. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's that, a bull picked for that cow. We might go on to our next cow, the cemental cow, which we said was average for carcass weight. She's very good for daughter milk, and she's very good fertility. And Ger is looking to put a limousine or a Charlotte type replacement bull on her. I suppose, Rose, what options have we got here?
Yeah, I suppose the important thing here is if you have the milk and you have the fertility, you want to keep it. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to lose it. So we want to at least maintain those. And we want something higher on carcass, because this cow, she's plus 13 kilos in carcass. So with the top bull there, Shannon Stan, he's plus 33 kilo carcass. You get a very, very good lift in carcass from him. He's also the highest replacement index limousine bull available at the moment. So your replacement stars will stay up. So very, very interesting bull. So I definitely recommend Shannon Stan. Erebos is another bull, good on milk, and he will keep the carcass weight up, as will Jarrell. Powerful, this is not a maiden, but if it was a maiden, Powerful Proper would be a great choice. And then Omega, the bottom bull, he's a Charlie bull the highest carcass weight there, plus 35 kilos. Probably enough milk for this cow because she's extremely high in milk. And his calving interval is interesting because it's a minus. And we want a minus in calving interval because that means that a highly fertile bull like that, the daughters will actually gain time every year. So that's why, you know, it's a minus because you're gaining time.
Just
The
an
other thing
interesting,
about all of these,
an interesting one that there, Rose. Some farmers confuse calving interval a lot with gestation. So that's a good point to make, that the calving interval figure on days on the right is it's fertility, it's not gestation. So because a lot of farmers do get that mixed up. Gestation is its own trait. So yeah, I think it's a good one to make there on that one.
yeah, no, thanks, Chris. And I suppose an easy way of remembering it is the bottom 3 lines on the animal search or on an AI catalogue or on a bull sale catalogue. They're the 3 lines that you really need to look at when you're talking about breeding good quality females. So the first one is maternal calving difficulty, and the lower the better. And all these bulls are good, so that means they have good calving ability. The next line on the list is milk, and the bottom one is calving interval. So
Yeah.
so we need a minus there. So milk is very interesting because he'll give you the carcass weight. You'll have enough milk for this cow, and he'll improve the fertility.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a question in here, why is the milk reliability often quite low for the bulls?
Yeah, because if you think about it, when we introduce bulls to our AI center, the first year we get calving and gestation. Sorry, the year 1, which is the year after we introduce them. After that, then we get weaning weights, and that will be good predictor for carcass weights. So usually animals are slaughtered then about 2 years of age, so we get a lot of carcass. Most females in Ireland don't calve for the first time until about 30 months. So we need the females to calve down, and then we need their weanlings to get to weaning stage, because it's actually the weight of the weanling that gives us the milk figure.
Yeah.
So it just takes a long number of years to get there. So that's
Yes.
how the reliability isn't high on a lot of the younger bulls, especially.
Perfect. No, thanks for that, Rose. So I suppose, Ger, look, what type of bull are you interested yourself then? Rose has a few great options there.
Yeah, the 2 probably standing out there, Shannon Stan there and Omega. They have I love the calving interval a minus value. That's huge to bring into the herd.
Yeah.
I want a plus value and a very good plus value in the milk. And there's some of them there, even in the middle there, up at 8 kilos. That's very good for limousines. And basically then the maternal calving, that's important as well, you know, to look down what calving ability our daughters would be like. So that's important for me as well, you know. The calving ability is huge, that you know, the cow or the heifer can calve on her own, that you know, with a reasonable bull inside her, like, you know, that's very important to me. And all that information is there, and obviously the reliability increases with the age of the bull and the more straws that are used on the bull. So yeah, look, there's great options. There's lots of bulls out there, but sometimes you have to just sit down and look at what you want, where you are with your own cows, and where you'd like to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
Rose
perfect.
mentioned there a second ago about optimum milk. So let's just take the last bull, Omega. So while you would be bringing milk back a little bit, like 12.3 plus the bull's 3.5 is 15.8, so call it 16. So a daughter on the parent average would be still plus 8 kilos on milk, and you're getting, you know, a big boost in that carcass. So you're bringing that cemental cow to be a more balanced cow, even though you are bringing the milk back a little bit, you know. So that's how you work out the trait values, is you add the sire and the dam together, and that gives your parent average. So, you know, your daughter will be still plus 8 kilos on milk, which is more than
Yeah.
enough, you know.
And then when you genomic test those daughters, that value can shift a bit then, Chris, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So it could go up, it could stay the same, it could go down, but you know, that is the beauty of genomics. It just gives the values a bit more accuracy then.
Yeah. And I suppose, Ger, like, what's your target for milk PTA, and, you know?
like 8-9 kilos of milk
And in your cow.
is in my cow, yeah. Like when they're up into the double figures, the high double figures there, like they have too, they're too much milk, as Rose said early on. You're in mastitis trouble there in early on in the calving season, because they just can't cope with the amount of milk that the cow is producing.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there, like, and that's why you just kind of pick the bulls to suit the cows and where you are with milk and where you are at confirmation, and you need to go up or down in either one of them, like, and that's why there's such a good selection of AI bulls out there, like, and it's important. For me, it's important to actually tap into that in those bulls, get the best genomics in the country, in straws, and get them into cows and
Yeah.
improve the genet. It's the quickest way you will improve the genetics of your herd, is actually just using the best bulls out there.
Perfect. Absolutely. We might move on, Ger, in the interest of time, to you had the cow that you said you find it hard to calve her down each year. You always have to take out the calving jack. You're not going to choose her for a replacement, but you're probably going to want a terminal sire on her with a low calving difficulty, I suppose.
Yeah, she'd be. I'm aiming for a 3% or under, and for calving difficulty for her, with a reasonably good index or carcass, and confirmation as well. There's a couple of bulls there. There's lots of bulls there that are easy calving. You can get an Angus, or you can put an Aubrac on her, and there's you get the odd Limousine and Charlie as well that are easy calving. More Limousine, they'll be down under 3%. Yeah, look, yeah, she's not ideal for me. When her time comes, she'll be moved on. But you just I will put an easy calving bull on her this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And out of the selection of the bulls there that Rose has provided, what one would interest you the most there?
The Aubrac there is looks. I've done Aubracs before, and I'm very happy with them. They can be good bulls, easy calving, and they finish well. I can finish them under 16 months. They do what they say, and they're nice bulls as well. So I would be leaning towards the Aubrac that
Yes.
selection.
No, perfect. Yeah, that's great. And look, obviously, then you'll have a lot more cows that can probably handle a bull more than 4% calving difficulty. And I suppose, look, you're doing a 16-month bull beef system, you said. So I suppose, what traits are you looking for in a bull in a bull for producing bull beef?
Yeah, like I have two main ones when I'm choosing terminal sires. I need plus 30 in the carcass weight, and I need more than 2 in the confirmation, maybe 2.5, because look, weight pays for me, and when I'm finishing animals. Confirmation pays. Every grade I go up is money in my pocket. Even if I was selling them in the mart, confirmation is huge as well. Shapy bulls. Like there's bulls there, and we will talk about myostatin there in a minute. But there's lots of bulls out there that are very good terminal bulls,
Yeah, I
and
suppose.
there's a great selection out there. And Ricky there now is he's a good bull. There's Shannon Stan is a young bull there coming through. He's a non-carrier, and Rigby I've rigged, I do use our Daly Rigby there this year. Very satisfied with his progeny so far. Le Pond there is a fantastic easier calving, Charlie as well.
Yeah, I suppose, Rose, what would you be recommending here for Ger's system?
I suppose the first thing is, if you're using a bull for terminal, is to sort out what level of calving are you happy with and can you tolerate? Because that's kind of the first criteria I would look at. And the best way of figuring that out is to benchmark yourself. What bulls did you use last year? How did you get on? So if you used a bull last year, 9% on beef cows, you were happy, you really didn't have any issues, then you can, you have a huge choice of bulls. If that's a step too far from you, you know what I mean? If you want to go under 8, then you know where you are, you can benchmark. The other thing about calving is, the higher the reliability, the better the predictor of the calving. So all the bulls here are now, you know, over 90% reliable. So then you're really getting into, you know what level you're at that stage. So once I had the calving sorted, carcass weight is important. So that, you know, the higher the better, because you get more weight. After that, then I suppose it depends on whether you're finishing or have or selling weanlings. If you're selling weanlings, I would go for that bit more shape, more carcass conformation. And if you look at the Munster and Progressive catalogue, we would have the bulls identified, the terminal bulls, whether they're more suitable for finishing than for weanling. So as an example, I would consider Lapin a great bull for finishing, very good carcass weight, good carcass conformation when they get to finish, while Ricky would be more of a weanling bull. You get that muscularity at that early stage. So just depending on a weanling or finishing, sort out the calving, carcass weight, and carcass conformation. And if you're finishing, I'd also start looking at the age of finish index. It's a new index, it's useful. And again, we're looking at for a minus there, because the shorter it takes to finish, the better.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thanks very much. Just before we move on to talking about our next stage of myostatins, I just want to address a few questions here from the audience around selecting bulls. Chris, I might divert the first question to yourself. We have a question here that someone's wanting to buy a stock bull for replacement, but they don't know how to look up the individual traits for the stock bulls. Can you maybe just outline how that can be done?
Yeah, so if you have a tag number of a potential animal you're interested in, you can put it into the animal search. You can do it on the phone or on a computer, and that'll bring up the animal's full index for you. So you'll have the replacement and terminal indexes, but you'll also have all the traits as well: calving difficulty, all the carcass information, docility, gestation, and the daughter traits are there as well. So
Okay, so it's just type ICBF animal search into Google, click it, and then it's the full animal's tag number you have to type in.
ICBF animal search will take it directly to the page, and just put in the tag number, and it'll give you everything there.
Perfect, thanks. And Rose, there's a question here around someone, look, they're using a Charolais stock bull. They only want to have one bull and using the Charolais stock bull to produce weanlings, but they want to, I suppose, he's very terminal and they're interested in trying to breed their own replacements. I suppose what options are out there for them?
Yeah, if they want to breed their own replacements, what they could identify is a couple of their best cows, you know, that breed a good calf every year. That's really important. Good milk, good fertility, good legs and feet, good udder, you know, quiet, all that good stuff. And select high replacement bulls, and the sex semen available now from most of our top bulls. So weak sex semen there's a great opportunity to breed good replacements from your best cows.
Yes, yeah, and next week on the breeding webinar, I suppose there will be discussions around sex semen and synchronization, AI, and all of that as well. So no, that's great. Thanks. We might just keep moving on in the interest of time, and we're going to talk about myostatins. So we have with us Cliona Ryan from Teagasc, who's a geneticist who done a PhD on myostatin genes. So Cliona, we're going to give you control here to talk, introduce what is myostatins and their role on farms.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter. So firstly, what is myostatin? So myostatin is a gene that controls muscle growth. So we can think of myostatin like a brake pedal on a tractor or on a car. Basically, if it works, muscle growth is slowed down or controlled, so you get the normal looking animals. But if there's actually breaks in the myostatin gene, the brake pedal is essentially broken, and then muscle growth takes off, and that's what gives you these big double muscled animals. So if the myostatin gene works and it controls muscle growth, there are no breaks in the gene. But breaks can appear in the myostatin gene in certain positions, and these are called myostatin mutations. And they usually only occur in certain breeds, and they essentially stop myostatin from controlling the muscle growth. So if we look here, we can see that the first break is at this position here, and it's a partial break in the gene, and it's called the F94L mutation. So this is generally found in limousines. And animals that carry this mutation usually have improved carcass rates and there's no impact on calving difficulty. Then there's other mutations that can actually cause a full break in the myostatin gene. So these are called different names again. So we can have the Q204X mutation, which is mainly in Charolais, NTA21, which is mainly in Belgian Blues, and E226X, which is only found in Shorthorns. So these all cause an increase as well in carcass traits, but it's just important to note here that the Q204X and the NTA21, they also do cause more calving difficulty. So myostatin is a gene, and just like any gene, it's inherited in pairs. So one copy of myostatin is always inherited from the sire, and the other is always inherited from the dam. So if we take NTA21 as an example here, an animal can have two functional copies of myostatin, which is represented by the green bar. So this basically means that the brake pedal is essentially working here, and myostatin is controlling muscle growth. Then the animal can have one copy of the NTA21 break or mutation, which is represented by the red bar, or she can have two copies of NTA21. So in terms of muscle, we're talking about an additive scale here. So if a cow has no copies of the NTA21 mutation, she's going to be a normal size. If she has one copy, she's going to be a bit bigger. And if she has two copies, she's going to be double muscled. So then just to go into how myostatins actually pass down. So we've already said it's inherited in pairs. So you get one from the sire and one from the dam. So that means each animal can only pass down one copy to the calf. So if we look at the first cow here, the semental, if she's no copies of NTA21, she can pass down that mutation to her calf. Then if she's one copy of NTA21 and one copy of the functional myostatin, she's a 50-50 chance of passing either of those copies down to her calf. And then if she's two copies of NTA21, she has to pass one copy of NTA21 down to her calf. So I suppose just the important point to say with this is if there's a bull out there and he's two copies of NTA21, that doesn't mean that all of his calves are also going to have two copies of NTA21 because he can actually only pass down one copy himself. So that's really why it's important to know what the bull carries and what the dam carries, because it's a combination of the two. So if we use a bull that has two copies of NTA21 on a cow that has no copies, what will the calf have? So again, the green bars here represent the functional myostatin and the red bars represent the NTA21 mutation. So in this example here, the semental only has the functional myostatin. So she has to pass down one copy of the functional myostatin to the calf. And because the bull only has the NTA21 mutation, he also has to pass down one copy of that mutation to the calf. So in this case here, all the calves will always have one copy of NTA21. So you'd expect them to have a decent amount of muscle. So now if we keep the same bull, but this time we use him on a cow that has one copy of NTA21, what will the progeny have? So this dam has a 50-50 chance of passing down either the functional myostatin or else the NTA21 mutation. So say for example, the dam passes down the functional myostatin, then the sire passes down the NTA21 mutation. She can also pass down the NTA21 mutation, and then the sire has to pass down the NTA21 mutation. So with this bull and this dam, there's actually a 50-50 chance of getting a double muscle calf out, or else equally, there can be an equal chance of getting just a calf that has one copy of NTA21.
That's an interesting example. I suppose some questions are coming in like some years you have the exact same bull on the exact same cow, and she's a one copy carrier of the gene. And like some years she'll have a smashing calf, and other years she might have a reasonably plain type calf. I suppose interaction partially explaining some of this, why there's inconsistencies across a cow producing a calf each year.
Yeah, that exactly explains that. So I mean, if a calf is or if a cow is a carrier, it's like you say, she's a 50-50 chance if she's used on a sire with 2 copies of throwing a massive calf, or equally she could throw a calf with just 1 copy, which will be obviously a lot plainer of an animal. And it goes vice versa as well. So if a bull is a carrier and if he's used on a dam with 2 copies, like the bull could throw massive calves, or else, there could be normal sized.
Yeah, you'd kind of often see it too with even with F gene. You'd see obviously a Limousin Friesian cow. She'd have 1 copy of the F gene, and you throw a double muscle Limousin on her who also has the F gene. And some years she has a great calf, and other years he's reasonably plain as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Even
It's
so, it's the
purely
same.
down
It's the
to
same with the F gene as well as the
chance.
NT gene, of course.
Yeah, it would be,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I suppose it's very important to know that that information is down on the catalogs, and you can pull that off your stock bull as well, Cliona. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all of this information's on all of the catalogs, and it's exactly like what's on this slide. So it'll say whether they carry 1 copy of each mutation, or if they carry 2 copies, or if they carry no copies.
And the stock bull that can be checked as well.
Yeah, so you can check your stock bull and all of your animals as well on the ICBF website. You've access to all of that. Yeah. Perfect. So say if we use the same bull again, but this time on a cow that's a double muscle cow, so she's 2 copies of NT821. The calf will always get 1 copy of NT821 here from the sire and 1 copy of NT821 from the dam. So the calf produced in this instance is always going to be double muscled. So I suppose it's just important here that generally these double muscle dams tend to have narrower pelvises. So they tend to have harder calving because they actually just have more trouble getting that calf out. And then to make things even worse, the double muscle calves are actually a lot bigger. So it's just trying to fit that bigger calf through a narrow pelvis tends to create more calving difficulty. So that's really why it's important to know the carrier status of the bull and the cow, because we've shown 3 examples here of using the same bull. And I mean, in the first example, there mightn't have been much calving difficulty at all, whereas here it'll obviously be a lot higher.
And on that, Cliona, say that's the NT, what you call it earlier on, say the disruptive
Yeah.
gene. If you had, say, a Limousin cow with F gene and a Limousin bull with an F gene, are both 2 copies, do you get hard calving in that situation?
No, so with myostatin, when it comes to calving difficulty, the only 2 that you really need to be wary of are the NT and the Q204X, because they're the 2 of the disruptive variants that actually do cause calving difficulty. Whereas, say, the Limousin, the F94L, and say like the Shorthorn, the E226X, there's no association between them and calving difficulty. So if your animals have them, you can kind of just nearly forget about them and work away.
Yeah, okay. And Rosa, I might just ask you a question. You probably commonly see it in industry where you might have an implicate, say a farmer using a Q gene Charlie on a double F cow. Could you get any calving difficulties in that situation? You get some fantastic stock with that mix.
Yeah, I suppose the thing to remember about myostatin is it's just one piece of the jigsaw of information. You know what I mean? So it's just one piece. So if you have a Charlie bull carrying the Q gene, that will give you information that you can expect a bit more shape. For the calving, you can also look at the calving figure. So if he's a fully proven bull and he's over 90% reliable and he's very easy, the fact that he's the Q gene is not, going to make him any more difficult. It's just part of what he is.
Yeah.
So normally putting a Q on an F94L cow, I wouldn't expect too many issues, all other things being okay. Because as Cliona said, we can consider the F gene as if it's not there at all. We don't really have to worry about it. Where you'll get unstuck is if you have a cow that's a carrier, but she doesn't look like a carrier. She might be plain herself, but she's still carrying the gene. That's where people usually get stuck. Typical in a blue from the dairy herd, for example, So you have a plain cow, she's a carrier of the double muscle gene, you're not aware of it, you put maybe a double carrier bull on her. That's where guys tend to get caught. So I think the secret is know the status of the cow, know the status of the bull, understand what you want to achieve yourself, and then you can decide whether you want it or not.
Yeah, and say when you know the status of the cow, there's a question here from Maria saying that she has a heifers with a QF, with both the Q and the F gene, and she has another one with the N and the F gene. And she wants to know, can they be kept for replacements on her farm, or would she need to expect them to be harder calving?
Yeah, so they're females, so now it depends on what she wants to do. In general, is if you don't want any issues calving, and she has an NT and a Q, and she, you know, she likes them and she wants to keep them, the advice would to be to put non-carrier bulls on them.
Yes.
In general, for replacement, though, you might be better off avoiding it altogether, because you just have, you know, an easier life, less calving difficulty. If you take both the French Limousine and Charlie maternal programs, they don't use myostatin carriers in their programs. They just decided we don't want them. Now, having said that, if you want to produce a lot of shape, you need myostatin, but you might be better off getting it from the bull, so that your cow is a non-carrier, she's greater calving ability, so then you can go with your carrier bull.
Yes, yeah. I suppose there's a lot of lads there on this call, and they're selling wheelings, and they're looking for that shapy wheeling at the sale.
I think it's just important to mention as well that you know, there are non-carrier bulls that are extremely difficult calving, you know, so it's important to remember that too, that and like, I mean, you know, you've all Belgian blues are double NTs, and a lot, you know, there are some very easy calving Belgian blues that are carrying 2 copies. So like as Rose said, it's just some extra information, you know. It like myostatin status should never be used to sort of replace looking at the calving difficulty figure of bulls. Like, you know, it's just an extra piece of the jigsaw.
And I suppose it should not be something to be afraid of, Peter, you know, that, you know, if you want to, you know, if you have a cow, and I have some myself, you know, that I look at the reports, the slaughter reports at the end of the year, and I look at the animal and I said the bottom 2 or 3, and I said, how can I improve the, you know, the carcass or the conformation? And sometimes, you know, you might have to bring in you know, one of them myostatins just to bring on the shape of the calf a small bit, you know.
Yeah. So look, maybe just on the carcass traits, Clean, I might just get you to finalize, I suppose, what have you found in your PhD about the impact of these carcass traits and myostatins?
Yeah, so for the carcass traits, I suppose all of the myostatin variants that we talked about earlier, like the E226X, the F gene, the Q, and the NT821, they all did have an effect on carcass weight, carcass fat, and conformation. And it differed depending if they carried 1 copy or 2 copies. So it was kind of on an additive scale. So animals that had, say, no copies of myostatin tended to be the lighter ones and with slightly fatter carcasses and poor conformation. Then if they had 1 copy, they were 1 step up from that. And then animals that had 2 copies of myostatin were 1 step up from that again.
Yes, yeah, no, that's great, thanks. And I suppose, look, Rose, I suppose, is it safe to say, like, for some farms, it's very suitable for farm systems for them to chase after 2 copies of a myostatin, and for other farm systems, it mightn't be suitable to chase after myostatins, depending on what you need on your farm to produce.
Sure, if you want shape, there, you know, I'd absolutely look at the carcass conformation figure of the bulls and of my cows.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go that bit step further, I wouldn't shy away from myostatin. I think it's a positive thing, but just know the status of the cow and know the status of the bull.
Yeah.
If you want to breed show calves, you know, guys that want to breed show calves, they will want the myostatin on both sides because they want that guaranteed double muscling. So it really depends on what you want. But if you know the cow and if you know the bull and you know what you want to achieve yourself, You know, they're the three things I think you can decide then whether you want it or not.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose, Chris, there's a lot of questions coming in here on where do I find out this information about the suckler cow and what is our myostatin genes.
Yeah, so there's a profile for genotyped animals. So when you log into your ICBF account, you can go to the menu, go to view profiles, and go into the genomics profile. Now, up until actually today, you had to click into under major genes there, you had to click on view, but there's actually a new tab that only went live today, which will give you all of the it'll give you pollness and all of the, I think, 8 myostatin variants. So it'll tell you whether the animal has 0 copies, 1 copy, or 2 copies. So it just saves you having to click into that to open that pop-up. So the steps are still the same.
Yeah.
You still follow the same route, go into the view profiles, go to genomics, but you'll just see an extra tab option up on top and just click on the pollness plus myostatin, and you'll see all the information there. There will be some instances where there's no result, and that's because we weren't able to interpret the myostatin status for certain ones. So like you might, for example, see an animal who's genotyped and F94L, it might say no result because we weren't able to predict based on the call rate from the genotype.
Yeah. And to be clear, did they have to be genotyped in
Oh
order?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like animals that aren't genotyped, we can't report on any major genes naturally because it's based on the DNA of the animal.
Yeah, yeah. And just one last question. If you don't own the animal and you want to buy the animal, is there a way to find out what their myostatin status is?
So you can't do that through the animal search. What you would have to do there is you'd have to get the owner of the animal to check it on their profile
Yeah.
and give you
So
the
if you're buying a
information.
stock bull, if you're buying a stock bull in the morning, you just ask the herd owner to provide the myostatin status
Yes.
of that
No,
bull.
the sales catalogs in the comment sections, they do report the myostatin status at the pedigree sales. You'll see the myostatin status reported in the comments box at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very good. Thanks a million. And look, I know we're getting close to our timeline, so we might just aim to push on and wrap up. We look a key thing, I suppose, what people often talk about nowadays. Some people love it and some people prefer not to breed for it yet, but it's certainly a talking point is pollness. You see in the catalogue some bulls have two P's, other bulls may have a capital P and a small p. Maybe Rose, I might get your opinion on this, just I suppose outline the possibilities of having polled progeny based on these 2 examples.
Okay, so first of all, polled means that we've no horns. Horns won't grow on those animals. So that's the first thing to say. So the example on the left is we've a homozygous polled sire. So they usually would have 2 capital P's after their name. So those animals are polled themselves, as in they've no horns, and they're carrying 2 copies of the polled gene. If you cross that bull with this cow here, who's lovely horns, polled is dominant. So all of the progeny will be polled. They won't have horns. But this animal here has 1 copy of the polled gene from the sire and 1 copy of the Horton gene from the dam. So it's polled itself, it won't have horns, but it will be a carrier of the Horton gene. So if we take this animal here, then it's a heterozygous polled animal. It's the same status as this bull here. Now with a heterozygous polled, it looks polled itself, so you get the polled head is quite different to the horned head. It's got you have a triangle at the top of the head, and usually the eyes look a little bit different as well. And usually polled animals have double eyelashes, so the head looks different. But if you have a heterozygous polled animal, so that animal is carrying one polled gene and 1 Horton gene, so it only has 50% chance of passing on the polled gene when crossing a horned. So if you want all polled animals, you need a homozygous animal. If you're 50%, if you're crossing on horned. Now,
And
obviously,
just to complicate even more, Rose, if you cross a heterozygous bull and a heterozygous cow, what happens?
then you can get homozygous polled, heterozygous polled, or horned.
That's great, thanks. So look at again, look, it's just another genetic tool that farmers can select for if they wish. There's probably a lot more bulls starting to appear on the market that are polled now, and I suppose there's greater selection coming there now.
We are all breeds, Charlie, Limousine, Albrecht, Hereford, Simmental. So we've polled genetics now in all breeds.
Yeah, and it's great to see I suppose more of them come into the country and available for selection. I suppose look at I might just do I suppose our take home summary, and then I might just go back to answer a few questions that we haven't got to answer. There's a lot of questions and interest coming in here tonight. So look at we went through a lot of information there now in the last hour. And I suppose, look, the key take-home messages is, look, you have to know your system and know your cattle and know what you want to produce. So you have to know what traits you need in your cow to complement your system. And then you have to pick your sire, which can breed those desired traits to breed this cow. But it's always important that you still maintain very good cow fertility, no matter what system you're operating. And then, look, when you have your I suppose selection for your replacements done, you have to know what terminal traits to select for, especially when you're producing your male progeny to complement your system, and understand, I suppose, which myostatin genes can cause calving difficulties and which ones are going to suit your system. So look, there is a great outline there from Cliona of the different genes and I suppose the different crosses, and there's loads of information there available on ICBF to check, I suppose, the status of your cows and your bulls and what their myostatin status is and how you can use this to breed good cattle and also trying to avoid there's any problems. So I might just stop sharing here. Just bear with me 1 second. Perfect. We have everyone here available on the big screen. So just a few questions coming in here. Chris, there's one here. Have you to be a member of Herd Plus to see the myostatin status?
Yes. Yeah. So that profile you have to be in Herd Plus to see it. Yeah. And the
No
same
problem.
goes earlier for all the reports as well. Like that's part of the Herd Plus service.
Yes, yeah. And there's a question here, Cliona, I diverted to you. Shorthorns also carry the NT gene and the F gene. I suppose, look, you've probably looked at, there's a lot of the breeds carry a lot of the different myostatin genes too. Can you maybe just outline a bit on that?
Yeah, so the only myostatin mutation that's actually specific to a certain breed is really the E226X. So at the moment, shorthorns are the only breed that one's in, but the rest of them, like they do creep into other breeds. Like say years ago, the NT821, that used to just be in Belgian Blues, but now we see it's creeping into Angus's. It's in about 5% of Angus's, about 10% of Aubracs. It's in some Limousines, some Sailors. And even with that, like there's some animals, they have one copy of NT821 and they might have a copy of F94L as well. So it's just important to say that an animal, it's not that they have one or the other, like if you crossbreed two different breeds that have two different mutations, then the progeny can get both.
Yeah, so say there's one or two limousine bulls there in AI and they have one copy of the NT gene and they have one copy of the F gene.
Yeah.
Is there a 50% chance that is it an equal weight, and is there a 50% chance that the progeny could get the F gene or the NT gene from that bull?
No, so it's like the crosses that we did earlier. So
Yeah.
it's exactly what we did. So they have to pass down one copy for each mutation. So they either have two copies of the functional myostatin for each one, or else they carry the mutation.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a million. There's a question here. I did a DNA hair sample on a purebred, non-registered Angus bull, and it came back with the gene NT821. I might get someone to answer that. I suppose up to Angus can have those myostatin genes as well sometimes.
They can.
Yeah. And there's one question here. What's the difference between a Q gene and an NT gene?
It's pretty much just the position that that break occurs on in the gene. So they're two breaks that are complete breaks in the gene. They're just at different positions, really.
And there's another question here, just saying, just to clarify, I suppose, just to confirm, can I breed F-type cattle? They'll be double muscled, but without any major hassled calvings.
Yeah, so there'd be no calving with the F94L cattle at all. They wouldn't have the same degree as muscling now as the NT8 would or the Q204X, but they would be a lot bigger, yeah.
Okay, and there's one question, another one for you, Cliona, on have you any study on blondes and myostatin status? They don't carry any of the common, only a unique self-muscling gene.
Yeah, so we did look at the blondes as well, and we looked at them all within the myostatins that are in Ireland. So they didn't carry any of those ones that are common in Ireland. There is a specific myostatin gene that's common abroad, but that's not on the genotyping panels here at the moment.
Okay, yeah. And the last one is are there any breeds with no myostatin status?
So I suppose cementals would be the main one.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Look, I know there's loads of questions have come in tonight, and I'd like to thank everyone, I suppose, for their time. I suppose, Ger, look, breeding season has started for you now, and it's going well, I presume. Have you any second length of time that you're going to do breeding season over, or
Yeah, that's what the plan is to do. 10 to 12 weeks. I'm trying to, I had it down to around 10 weeks calving this year. So I'm kind of hoping to aim for around the same again. No, there's a lot of things that come into that equation, like, weather and things like that, diet and trying to keep cows at grass and try and keep their plain diet rising. So, there's a lot of things I suppose I do intentionally try breed my replacements early on in the breeding window, so that they'll calve down earlier, because late calving replacements are too young or too small to fit into my window. So if a cow comes up and she's suitable for a replacement, to put, I would do her earlier on in the breeding window.
okay, yeah, no, that's great, thanks. And sorry, there's just one last question here for you, Chris. I might just address it. I have a Hereford bull with a terminal index of 131 euro. If I add up all the index values from the terminal graphics from ICBF Animal Search, my bull is €9 lower than the sum of all the index values. €9 is the balance of the carcass spec, TB, and meat quality indexes. I could be mistaken, just for clarification. Thanks.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens on that graphics page a lot of the time is there could be, so on the replacement index, you've 16, 17 traits, and the terminal there's about 10, but each of the figures are rounded just for the visual display. But the actual terminal value at the top is, so if you take carcass weight, for example, an animal could be getting, say, €50 on the graphic screen, but in the background, it's actually getting €50 and 26 cents, for example, okay? It's going to be rounded back to €50. So if you have a number of traits that have been rounded on the display screen, when you add up the individual traits, it might be slightly different to the overall terminal. The overall terminal is going to be the actual figure, though, again, rounded, but it's going to have all of the values to 2 decimal places added together and then that rounded. So you will see differences there sometimes.
Thanks. And Rose, what's the relationship between the carcass weight trait and the myostatin carriers? Would you expect that increase in carcass weight if you have that
I
myostatin.
think as my
It's probably
statin is still just part of the jigsaw. So there's an awful lot of things that will influence the carcass weight of an animal genetically, and my statin is just one of them.
Yeah.
So in general, if you have my statin, you'll get higher carcass weight, you'll get higher carcass conformation. But it's just one of the influencers. It's not the full picture.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks a million. Look, I know there's a lot of questions coming in from everyone. It's time that we have to wrap up. So apologies if we haven't addressed your question. Look, this breeding webinar, it's only the second night of 3 nights. There's another breeding webinar on next week, and it's going to be looking at the latest technologies and how to use them. So it's going to be covering topics such as synchronization in cattle breeding, sex semen, embryo transfer, and I suppose the real world experience with the AI and synchronizations from farmers' experience. So there'll be going to be lots of good panelists next week. We have Ashley Malloy, Dave Kenny, Lyra Markham, and Billy Freyer. So look, we'd be delighted if you could join us again next week on the breeding webinars. I'd like to thank everyone for attending here tonight, and special thanks to our panelists and our sponsors for tonight as well. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Yes.
Cheers. Bye-bye.